we have a parliamentary system in Thailand. We had a hung parliament, and coalition governments then take shape according to the wishes of majority of parliamentarians. That's how my government came to being. It's also the same process that gave birth to two previous governments who just happened to be pro-Thaksin. So there's no real difference there. And we've been in office for a year and a half, which meant that even before the protest began, we already survived one confidence vote. We passed the budget, and we have passed a number of legislations. So if the majority of parliamentarians didn't support the government, we wouldn't be in office. And after the protests, already we passed the first reading of next year's budget. Also had a censure motion, and I already passed another confidence vote. But perhaps more significantly, ever since day one that I assumed office, I have tried all I can to try to reach out to find a political solution. Time and time and again, I found myself having my office rejected. Early elections following a referendum on constitutional changes, that was rejected by the opposition. I tried to offer a reconciliation plan, having elections on November the 14th. Again, it was rejected by the protesters. You don't often see a prime minister going to sit down face to face with leaders of the protests, offering to cut off his or her term by 1 year. These are all the things that we've tried to do. I think an overwhelming majority, almost all Thais, are anxious to move the country beyond this cycle of protests, curfews, and stability that you've mentioned. Whether we succeed depends on the implementation of the reconciliation plan. I can reassure you that I have every intention, I'm sure the rest of the people in the government are very determined to make sure that this process takes place. And we try as best we can to be inclusive in the process. On the effect on the economy, we had a very strong recovery going in the first quarter, 12% growth. I think probably third highest in the world, probably. The month April saw a slight month-on-month drop from March, but annual figures again still looking quite strong. Exports have held up, and they make a very important contribution to the economic growth. Significantly, actually, I had a review of all the figures in terms of poverty gap, poverty incidence, Gini coefficient, distribution. They all improved during last year because my stimulus package was clearly designed to address the needs of the people who most need assistance during an economic crisis, and we initiated supplementary income for the elderly. We pursued a free education program and so on. Nevertheless, because the perception is there, and perhaps feelings are there about inequalities, we will address them. And one of the 5 points in the reconciliation plan, there will be a comprehensive program set in motion to address these issues in particular. What I was trying to say is that the divisions that you see in Thailand, say politically, may not differ a great deal from many established democracies. You can take a map of the US, you can take a map of the UK, you can probably draw a line and say, this side of the line would vote Conservative, this side of the line would vote Labour, this side of the line votes Republican, this side of the line votes Democrat. You can do the same in Thailand in terms of the southern central region being generally supportive of the Democrats, Bangkok changes time and again, and the north and northeast being stronghold of the opposition at the moment. But to me, that's no different from a number of democracies. It's not as often portrayed as it's a rural-urban divide, because the south, the central region, are probably no less rural than the north and northeast. And yes, we do see a gap between the haves and the have-nots, just as you see in many market economies. The point that I'm making is that, be that as it may, we take these divisions seriously. Political divisions political differences should be allowed, but they should not be allowed to degenerate into violent conflicts. Economic divisions need to be addressed, and this government has adopted a clear policy of providing opportunities in order to address these divisions. I was asked who in the red shirts I'd like to reach out to. My answer, truthfully, is that I'd love to reach out to all the grassroots people, because I firmly believe that they do not want to see violence, that they have come to demonstrate because of their political beliefs, whether they are right or they are wrong, and they are the people that really matter. We are doing that through all the points in the reconciliation plan, particularly addressing their concerns and needs economically or even politically. But what I'm trying to demonstrate is that this government will allow political space, which we have always done for people who think differently from us politically. Unfortunately, their leaders have persuaded them that they need to engage in protests, to make demands, which frankly speaking have been changing and escalating. Last year it was about the Constitution. When we offered a referendum, they turned it down. This year they talk about dissolution. We offered early elections, and then they turn it down. So it's difficult if the leaders of the movement continue to use the grievances, the legitimate grievances of the masses as a front for some demands that they do not make openly, but are clearly hidden agenda and often linked to the former Prime Minister's interests. That's the basic problem. And I hope that the reconciliation plan will do all it can to take these people back to the legitimate grievances that we will address. Time frame for an emergency decree, we will try to lift it as soon as we can. What we have to do is listen to people on the ground, the police, the governors. If they want these special powers to be in place, if they want, say, personnel from the army or the military to help them out for the time being, we just have to make sure that there is stability and order. If you go around Bangkok, you go around the provinces where the decree is in place, I don't think you would notice much in terms of limitations of freedom. But it gives the assurance that these people have backup in cases in case where violence might possibly break out. But if they report, just as they did last week, that the curfew is no longer needed, we let them straight away. What's difficult about the panel? It wouldn't be difficult if I just appointed people who I saw fit. What's difficult now is I'm trying to find a chairman and also a panel that will be inclusive enough to make sure that all sides can be confident of the neutrality of their work, which means that I need somebody who is sympathetic to the red shirts in the panel. The person who asked me to be chairman is now trying to approach people who can represent the people, the protesters and the red shirts. So it takes a bit of time, but we want that to be in place. If you want me to appoint a panel as I like today, I could. But what would be the point of the exercise? So maybe a little time is needed still to get this panel set up. But once it's set up, it will have a clear time frame for fact finding is concerned.
Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much indeed.